Start this panel in the worst way possible by the most boring person here talking about himself, but I promise there's a point to that. So my name is Dan Litvin. I'm president at PureTek Group. We're a company that helps, among other things, design and support districts in getting esports arenas built into their facilities and schools. So I actually live up in just north of Seattle, Washington. So it is a fun time for all Seahawks fans, which I am not one of. But the reason I say that is I come from the land, or right now I live in the land of Microsoft. Small little company, might have something to do with computers. I lived for a while in Portland, Oregon, which is known as Silicon Forest. And what we have here in New Jersey, compared to what's there, compared to what's on the West Coast, even progressive California, with them being proud about being the leaders in everything technology, what is in New Jersey is unparalleled across the country. With Scholastic Esports, we have gentlemen representing at the panel all ends of Scholastic Esports, from K-12, collegiate, and nationwide, with the leagues and the endeavors going across it. And just a few facts about New Jersey, some things that make it special. More than 12,000 students and more than 400 schools actively participate in Scholastic Esports. This is not just a little club that's done with a few people in a back room. This is not, as all of you know so well, kids gaming in the basement or the attic or the crawl space or wherever they game nowadays. This is a full-on movement. There's been research shown that with esports adapted into schools, attendance rises. More than $20,000 were gained in state attendance funding for just a handful of high schools that have been studied. This is something where the investment is worthwhile, not just for the administration, not just for the budgets, but for students making an unparalleled change in their lives, especially for groups of students that may have not had a home that they can really find in a school setting in the past. So with that, we have a lot to talk about today. I will be biased and I will say that this is going to be far more interesting than the 10,000 AI workshops that you have. And so let me go and bring out our panelists today. So if you can all go down the line, introduce yourself, and please, in one or two sentences, why esports is critical in education. Anyone can get started.
Sure. So my name's Chris Aviles. I've been an educator here in Jersey for 17 years. I left the classroom about 2 years ago because Garden State Esports, the league that Steve Isaacs and I founded during COVID, got too big to run. There was 400 schools and 12,000 kids playing our state league. And we're really excited to continue to serve the schools and students by providing, if you follow anything that's come out, the newest varsity activity here in the state of New Jersey. So excited to be here and kind of share the stuff that we've been working on.
My name is David Bruno, Associate Dean of Academic and Workforce Partnerships at Camden County College. So I'm representing the higher ed sector, and that stat of the 12,000 students in the K through 12 sector, they need a place to go after grade 12. And so what we wanted to do was really establish an esports program at Camden County College that really was a premier destination for our students to consider. That required human investments, human resource investments. It required facility investments. But more importantly, it was the academic degree investment that we also built into it. So excited to share about some of the growth that we've seen there and really where we see things going as the industry moves forward.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm Rashon, Hasan, Superintendent in the K-12 space here in the state of New Jersey, specifically known for leading Plainfield Public Schools. Ultimately, I build Scholastic Esports ecosystems inside of public education systems. And I'm talking about not just teams, but curriculum alignment, facilities, broadcasting, and also CTE pathways. From my perspective, esports is critical in education because it's one of our most reliable ways to convert student interest into belonging. It helps improve attendance, teamwork, communication, And it also helps us establish a very distinct career readiness pathway for our students. And the last thing, but probably is most importantly, is that when this is done right, esports becomes a multi-billion-dollar industry's career pathway brought directly into our school buildings, and our students can have access to that as long as we make this available to them.
And so our first question is going to go to Rashon. So from your perspective, from your experience as a superintendent, what is New Jersey doing differently that's allowing Scholastic Esports to grow so quickly and to have such an intentional usage inside of school spaces?
Well, I think the first thing that we're doing in New Jersey is allowing Chris and his team to do the work that they've been doing throughout the state of New Jersey, leading Garden State Esports. You know, I was first introduced to Chris via email, actually. I reached out to him as a parent because my son was interested in gaming. And Chris gave me a whole blueprint that I could use and take into any school district, any community to launch an esports program, right? So as I move forward as a superintendent, I've gotten to learn a great deal about the work that he and his team is doing. But in the state of New Jersey, we're building infrastructure, we're building policies, we're establishing partnerships, and we are in fact legitimizing esports. Right? So gone are the days where children are sitting in their room playing games and parents are yelling upstairs saying, put the game down, right? Parents are probably at home now looking over their kids' shoulders saying, how good are you? Can I get you into a tournament, and can we actually make this into a lucrative experience for you? We're connecting esports to outcomes and districts accountability, right? I've talked about student attendance. We've talked about inclusive environments, right? When you think about a school environment, you think about your sports teams. Raise your hand if you have a football team and you have autistic children playing on your football team. No one's raised their hand. Where's the opportunity for those students? Ding, 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 esports. We're building ecosystems, not rooms with computers. And finally, our New Jersey leaders, whether we're talking about Dave or whether we're talking about Chris, whether we're talking about IT directors, curriculum directors, they've already paved the way and done the hard work, and every state is now trying to replicate what they're seeing take place in the state of New Jersey.
And so taking that to Chris, so not only are you the president of Garden State Esports, but because Garden State Esports is so successful, you work with districts across the nation. What makes New Jersey so unique, and how is New Jersey leading the country?
It's interesting. I think when I talk to my friends in Texas and California and talk to, the governor's office in New York and stuff like that, one of the things that has made New Jersey able to scale, number one, is just the closeness, and not just the physical closeness, but the closeness of the school districts and the stakeholders working in New Jersey. To me, it's no surprise that New Jersey is constantly number one in education, but that they would jump on a movement like this so quickly. And for me, having folks like Rashon, having folks like Dave and Chris Bomer from Brookdale and Demetrius from Stockton, and even people like, Steve Isaacs, who's now at Epic Games, I've been able to find support for the 6-7 years I was running this as a classroom teacher, right? I only left a year ago because it just got too big to run, right? 410 schools as of yesterday morning. Without having people buy in to this crazy idea, like none of this would have worked, right? So even somebody who's been a supporter from the beginning, like a Grunin Foundation, right? Grunin Foundation is building wings on hospitals and building out areas in Count Basie Theater. I walked into his office because he lived down the street from me, and I kind of just said, like, hey, I got this idea about how to get more kids involved in schools. And he's like, cool, terrible presentation, but I love the idea, let's do it. And so it's been really great because all along the way, whether it's from my teaching connections or, my administrative connections or my collegiate connections or my workforce connections, we've been able to get to that next person. Everybody in Jersey has always been very helpful about opening a door for me because, listen, at the end of the day, like, I'm a high school English teacher, right? But to be able to talk to the people to make it happen, and again, if you follow anything that we've been doing, The last 18 months have been an absolute whirlwind. The School Boards Association sanctioned us as a governing body, sanctioned esports as a varsity activity. If you saw last week, the teachers union came out, said that esports should be paid as a varsity sports activity equivalent to that of soccer. That took 2 years to get buy-in from the teachers union. Right? But the fact that they now support esports, the fact that I'm going to do training so that the union can properly advocate for these teachers to continue the great work that they're doing, it's all along the way been a series of yes and let me introduce you, yes and let me help you, yes and. I mean, it's even, when I think about the audience of IT directors, I jump on call with IT directors who then are willing to jump on a third-party call with like a Meraki because we figured out what Meraki has to flip the switch to get esports into that school. So we've been really lucky to partner with Enjeta. You may have heard yesterday morning, right? We now have an an esports advisor on Enjeta. The IT guide that we've wrote over our last 7 years of experience about the right way to do this in schools has been adopted as the official Enjeta esports kind of guide for IT directors to bring this into their schools. So for me, I think what makes Jersey special beyond our kids and our teachers is just the willingness to try something different. And I think to me, again, having taught for 17 years, listen, I taught esports electives. I taught English as a video game, right? And teaching kids dialogue and stuff like that through video games. I've always been very lucky everywhere in education to get a lot of yeses, and I think that's what's helped continue Garden State Esports grow and what we're doing here. Because I'll tell you, man, dealing with New York and some of these other states, it's just, no, here's why, no, here's why, no, here's why. But in Jersey, from the Department of Ed, who gave out $250,000 in esports career scholarships last year, to the College League that Dave Bruno and Chris Bomer and Demetrius from Stockton co-founded with me, it's just been yeses. And I don't know anywhere else where, that would happen other than Jersey.
Right on. Some snaps for Jersey right there. All right, David, so 410 districts in the state of New Jersey involved, 12,000 plus kids. That's a lot of kids going to college.
26 colleges out of our 36 colleges play. We have the only in-person college league in the country, and Dave is the foundational force that brought in-person college to, Garden State Esports and the movement. So it's even fully, at the college level.
We all need a Chris bias to just do glow ups, for each other. So with that, David, so you are immersed fully in the college scene. How is New Jersey getting those kids, using college as a chance to prepare them for future careers, for the workforce, and really embed esports as a critical part of their educational journey?
Sure. I'm going to go back a couple of years in my esports life. And again, I like to say this, just maybe to relate to some people out in the audience. I don't play video games. I don't. Never really did in college a little bit, but today I've had no desire whatsoever. Again, I played a little bit of Animal Crossing with my daughter during COVID. I'll admit to that a little bit, I guess. So when I entered into the space, I was challenged at Camden County College with bringing one of our locations, our Cherry Hill campus, back to life. And looking at the landscape, this is pre-COVID a little bit, it was, what are these 21st century skill-based opportunities that we can lean into and invest in? We, at that time, invested heavily into cybersecurity, which, again, great choice. We were going to build a makerspace, which at the time was a fantastic idea until COVID hit, and then nobody wanted to touch anything. So that one kind of fell off the radar a little bit. And we had dedicated a little bit of a space for esports. We said, all right, let's dabble into this a little bit. We reached out to a local consultant, Horizon AVL, Josh Kells in the back there. And really his vision for what we wanted to bring to Camden County College was exactly what we thought the industry needed. And it really was the academic pathways. Because at that time, if you really kind of go back to 2018, 2019, there's a lot of league activity. And again, the leagues were all over the place. It's the wild, wild west of leagues. I still think it's the wild west of leagues. I don't think it's really kind of taken full shape as of yet. But we wanted to bring a little bit of clarity to the chaos. And in doing so, we decided to invest heavily in an academic program, specifically esports production, to give our students that academic opportunity to build out the transferable skill set that carries over to a variety of career opportunities as they pursue. There was nothing at the time. There was no 2-year degrees in the state of New Jersey. There was specifically nothing in esports production. The 4-year opportunities were just kind of just floating around there a little bit. Stockton had a little bit of something. Rowan launched their 3rd or 4th version of something. We wanted to take it to another level. We put the resource behind it. We put the facility behind it because we wanted our students to embrace esports, feel comfortable in a space that they wanted to compete out of on a regular basis, all the while building an academic program, which, if anybody in the room knows, takes about 2 years to get through the system. We started that process in 2021, launched our degree in 2023, instantly articulated, and became the first 2-year to 4-year esports degree articulation in the country with Stockton University, because we knew that this 2-year process was not going to end for many students, like most students at a community college. Since then, we've also articulated with Newman University and Rowan University to give our students a variety of pathways to consider or to continue on as they explore their own pathway in this kind of esports ecosystem. So it's really about making sure that there's opportunities as it relates to the academic side, but in addition to that, also looking at the credentialing and the certifications that can exist that can also be layered into this. It really is a pathway style approach. So looking at opportunities in Adobe Creative Cloud, DaVinci Resolve, Unreal Engine, a variety of different areas that our students can then layer a credential, a certification in, so that they become more skilled and more highly sought after from an employment standpoint. So it's really not about the gaming at Camden County College. Yes, we've won national championships, proud about that, but it's not about the gaming. It's about the career and the job at the end of the day, because otherwise we're not fulfilling our mission. If those students cannot find gainful employment upon completion, then we're doing the wrong thing. We've now graduated our first class this past year. We have upwards of 40 active majors in our degree program, and we're proud to continue that growth, and more importantly, share it with the other institutions that Chris talked about. We share with Stockton, we share with Brookdale. And I think really that's what this state really is leading the way on. It's really about collaboration. Chris is one of my instant dials on my phone. And you don't see that from a K through 12 higher ed relationship. It just doesn't exist. But his success is my success. My success is his success. We've seen that so many times over the past couple of years that we really have formed a very strong partnership to really build this out as a unit.
Yeah. So let's dive into a little bit of the educational side. So right now on the K-12 side, let's talk a little bit about kind of the qualitative results, some of the stories that you've seen, some of the ways that lives have been impacted by esports. So Chris, this one's for you. So what changes have you seen in student engagement or school culture as esports programs take hold?
It's cool because I could probably give you a billion. So let me think real quick what would arguably be the most impactful. So number one, what's really interesting is video games are the universal hobby of kids. If you walk into any classroom and you say, hey, who likes soccer, who likes wrestling, who likes cheerleading, you get like 25% of the kids. Hey, who goes home and play games? Whether it's Candy Crush, you're gonna get 99% of these kids, right? So some of my favorite stories are out of places like Mercer Tech. Number one, why Garden State Esports is special and why we fought so hard to be our own governing body is a school like Mercer Tech is not allowed to play in the NGSIA. So number one, we're allowed to have them participate in this league, and they have the thing that is theirs. They're the Wizards, right? The only team that they have ever had are the Wizards. On top of, I hear from schools all the time, hey, Overwatch, Valorant, right? Those are really popular games that attract a diverse audience of kids. What's really cool is you get kids who maybe played football in the fall, do nothing in the winter. They're coming out and playing Overwatch, and they're meeting 3 or 4 kids that they would have never spoken to who also love Overwatch. So I hear all the time that esports allows for cross-pollination because 98% of boys and 95% of girls play video games, right? And when you create an environment that is welcoming, right, these kids are going to come out. But, right, some of my favorite statistics, though, are we have 12,000 kids in the league we're going to see this year. 54% of them have never done anything at their school but esports. right? You talk to any sports coach, we got a couple in here, right? You talk to, Rashon or Dr. Williams from Plainfield, they're going to tell you they got kids in that program that have not done anything else at their school. Next, you run into, okay, well, what do we want for parents, right? I heard all parents all the time, well, do we really want kids, in front of more screens? How's that any better, right? When I think about what the league does for parents and how we're impacting kids is 89% of our kids say they no longer play with strangers online. They now play with kids that they met through the league or on their esports team. Because these kids, if they love Smash, it doesn't matter if they're from the North Jersey, they're from Plainfield, they're from Cherry Hill. Smash is Smash, and kids love Smash and they want to play Smash together, right? So it's this idea that we are connecting kids to their schools and each other. Like even Dan, when he was talking about those studies in his opening remarks, that was the only study ever done on 3 schools in 3 distinct areas of a state. All saw increases in attendance, decreases in poor behavior, and schools made back money. We did that study with Monmouth University, and I don't think it gets enough recognition for what it is, because I can guarantee you, right, we're putting more kids' butts in seats. When they're there, right, the schools who are doing this right, or they're connecting it to attitude, right, grades and behavior. When I coached at Keyport, when I coached in Fairhaven, my kids had to be in school, otherwise they didn't start. It was next man up. I've coached football and wrestling my entire teaching career, and I took that same mentality right into it. So giving these kids a sense of belonging, understand that they need to be a part of something, teaching them the best ability is availability, and don't tell me you have a dentist appointment on the day of a match because you want to cancel a high school football game, right, if you had to go to the dentist, so you better be at the esports match. So it's stuff like that. Right, when I hear that schools are walking these kids in pep rallies, they're buying them jerseys, they're on the morning announcements just like every other sport. When you look at the kids, right, like Rashon said, these kids who have autism, they're on the spectrum, have a learning disability, physical disability. Almost a third of my league has an IEP 504 or some type of disability that makes traditional sports impossible. So you look at the stats, right? 54% don't do anything at their school. Almost a third of my kids, right, have IEPs, 504, stuff like that. That's the kind of impact we're making. And like Dave said, it's literally got nothing to do with video games. Video games is the medium for connection that we're using to get these kids connected to each other and connected to their schools.
Mm-hmm. Can we make a t-shirt? Video games is the medium for connection. I like that right there. It's going to be... We have a room full of people invested in this. But one of the biggest things that's going to happen is when a coach goes to their leadership, when a teacher goes to their leadership, when an IT director goes to their leadership, they want to get the numbers. They want to understand, how is this going to impact? Why is this investment worth it? So what are some of those metrics? What are some of those outcomes that are important to look at and that will help to determine whether an esports program is quote unquote working?
Got it. Great question. Let's start by just plainly naming this. And this is true for any programs, any investments we make in our school districts. If we can't measure it, we can't defend it. Right? That's first and foremost. So, in response to the question, I had a 4-part scorecard, but as I listened to Dave and Chris, I think there are 2 other elements. I'll give you 6 key performance indicators that I believe every school district should use as a way to measure the effectiveness of an esports program. The first is student engagement and belonging, which Chris spoke about in great detail. So are students showing up more consistently? Are we recruiting students who weren't connected before, and are they reporting stronger connections to their peers and their adults? Very important. Academic readiness, right? If this is now a varsity sport, right, you now have to ensure that you are actually eligible to compete. So that means you have to hit the marks in the classroom, you have to have credit accumulation, on-time assignment completion, all of those things Chris talked about. Then there's skill development that should be aligned to real work. And we can label that as communication skill development, leadership, strategic thinking, collaboration, and probably most importantly, digital citizenship. What students do and say online will follow them for the rest of their lives. Equity and access. Who's in the program? Have we opened up the door to our students who are multilingual learners, our students with disabilities? I will tell you with 100% certainty, if you and I spoke different languages, but we got behind the console and we played a video game, we don't have to communicate to each other in those different languages. Guess what? Either you're winning in this game or I'm winning. shake hands after it's over. It builds sportsmanship and camaraderie. Now, revenue streams. Talked about the investment. Again, don't just build an esports space, build yourself an ecosystem. So in Plainfield Public Schools, the district hosted its first National Esports Invitational Program last school year in the spring. Chris helped with the planning and the execution of that. Absolutely amazing. But guess what? That esports arena is so immaculate that space can now be the host site for multiple esports tournaments. So if anyone is interested and you're looking for a place to host, Plainfield Public Schools might be a great site or location. So that helps us ensure that there's an adequate return on investment. Thanks to Dr. Williams for leading the charge. He's been the leader of this particular initiative in the school district. And the last thing I would say, after hearing Dave, what I think is extremely important as a success measure, and I think this is great for any board members who are here. Shout out to Mr. Webb, the Vice Chair of Plainfield Board of Education, who's sitting in the back. College acceptance as a direct connection to esports involvement. How many students have graduated and received acceptance to a college or university because of their skill set representing your organization in the esports arena? Didn't think about it until Dave talked about the connection. Here's why this is extremely important. If Dave and his team are building out these career pathways, these degree programs, etc., guess what? They need our students to now apply to their colleges and universities so they can fill those seats and actually earn these degrees that they've now made available for those students.
So
And
that
if I
is-
can real quick, Dan, I want to shout something out too is when Rashon says equity and access, I always like to throw opportunity in there, right? And one of the really cool things that I want to make sure folks are hearing about, especially because Plainfield is helping lead the charge in this as well. You know, I was very wise in listening to Dave Bruno, who told me that if we put on the first ever national combine in New Jersey, that the colleges would come. So February 7th at Brookdale, we're bringing 30 colleges from around the country to see the best 100 esports athletes in New Jersey. There's already been 7 scholarship offers before the event has even happened. Plainfield has 3 of those kids coming to the combine. So those 3 kids who, if they didn't invest, they didn't have the program, they didn't build that ecosystem, those 3 students would not be playing in this combine in front of 30 different colleges, right? And you have, you know, opportunities like that all over it. And you may think, okay, who's coming? Well, you know, we have a bunch of Jersey colleges coming, but we got colleges from other areas. West Point is also coming, right? West Point's looking for the next right person to come and be part of their team, stuff like that. So these opportunities, right, whether it's in the military, because almost every branch has an esports program as part of their recruitment pathway. We have our community colleges in New Jersey. We got a 4 universities coming, but then we have another 15 colleges coming from outside the state. And they're already emailing our kids just on straight competitiveness saying, hey, we want you to come play for us. 7 scholarship offers, right? And they're going to get to play in front of 30 different colleges because somewhere along the way, Plainfield Board of Ed and Rashon and you know, Mark, they said, yeah, let's do this. And they did it the right way. And they're seeing dividends over and over. They got multiple state championships, and now they got kids playing in the first ever combine. I mean, it's one of those things that you never know what's going to lead or where it's going to go. But if you have that vision like they do, that's where you wind up.
And just to add to that, again, I know we'll get to my next question, but when you say equity and opportunity, it really is making sure that the resources on the K through 12 level are allocated in an equitable fashion. So you see traditional sports programs, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, hockey, you name it, they all have, you know, fantastic facilities. They have fantastic apparel, jerseys, warm-up uniforms. They have the equipment that they need. Everything's refreshed every year. Yet our esports programs, and again, I do give Chris all of the credit in terms of making sure that the K through 12 sector understood that this is the same as a traditional sport. It should be treated as the traditional sport. But making sure that those K through 12 districts also treat them as such. Because again, that disparity still exists, unfortunately, where you have some districts that really are not putting a resource behind it. The kids are playing in front of a couple of screens, maybe a Switch and and maybe in homemade t-shirts. Where you have others that are playing in full-fledged arena spaces where you have, thousands and thousands of budgeted dollars going to support these activities. So it's that opportunity that we want to begin to also make sure that we balance. And again, the activities that we do on the higher ed side really play a factor in that. If we establish and continue to create a league environment in the state of New Jersey where it is competitive, where students want to actually be a part of it, the districts themselves should see that as that opportunity and say, well, I don't want my students to be left out on Stockton's team. I don't want my students to not get an offer from Syracuse. I don't want my students to be left out in these particular events, et cetera. So it's things like the combine, using traditional sports as that roadmap to this is giving those students those opportunities and really to continue.
And what drives me nuts is the football helmet sits in the field house until it's time for practice and then sits in storage until it's the fall. The computers that can be used for esports can revolutionize your school and upgrade your STEM program. And now all of a sudden you're teaching the things that we should be teaching kids on the devices that they deserve to learn on. So it's one of those things that it's, investing in esports is investing in STEM. It's investing in careers. It's not money lost or money wasted, right? Listen, I coach football and wrestling. My wrestling mats hang from the ceiling. My football helmets get reconditioned every 3 years, and I can tell you what it costs, but nobody bats an eye. But an investment on a $40,000 worth of computers every 5 years, now all of a sudden we just... But meanwhile, you can teach engineering, CAD, Unreal Engine, video editing, virtual reality, and all the other stuff that we want these kids. We talk about careers, but we don't want to give them the devices. Yeah. So how about we give them the devices, you get some really cool classes during the day, and then you get the most inclusive after-school activity on the planet, and everybody wins. Sorry.
Can we talk about stigma too? That's really where I want to go next. I mean, there still is stigma connected to playing esports. But I can proudly say, and I'll use my daughter as the example. My daughter is a traditional sports player, zero interest in video games completely. But she is vice president of her class at Cherokee High School here in New Jersey. The graduating class has upwards of 500, 600 students. She has been advocating strongly, and Chris knows this, I've copied him on the emails, for her administration to begin to acknowledge the championships that the teams have earned. My daughter was on the state championship soccer team. Police escort out of the town, from the school to the stadium, well, to the town line, which is where the police escort was. Yet the esports team had 3 championships, and it was barely an acknowledgement in a newsletter. My daughter saw that as a complete, and again, it was a slap in the face to the esports programs. 100%. So it's breaking down, it's redefining what esports mean in these districts. I know there's a long way to go, but I will say that the growth that's happened here in the state of New Jersey has made those conversations much easier to have. Administrators aren't laughing about esports, they're figuring out how and why they need to invest in it. The student body are not snickering at the students playing esports. They're now going to these games and matches, cheering behind the scenes. So it's that growth that you're seeing is going to help build that equality, that equitable allocation as things continue, with the industry. Sorry, I'm off track.
I love it. You just made my life so much easier. I should have my cup of coffee and all right. So I want to just hone in a little bit because I do want to talk about the equity, the accessibility, the opportunity a little bit more. But Rashon mentioned KPI number 6. David, Chris, you guys mentioned setting the pathway to college. Now, it's easy from an outside perspective for a naysayer to listen and say, okay, great. The top tier of the kids, they're going to get a scholarship. But it doesn't matter. If they were playing a traditional sport, they would have found their way anyway. What about the other kids involved in the sport, on the team? what can they do K to 12 through esports to help them maybe get accepted to a college that they wouldn't have otherwise? And when they're at college, how can they leverage esports to help them find a career, to be successful, to learn the soft skills as well that help them become, a betterment to themselves and others? So David, I'm going to punt that one to you.
From the collegiate side, it's making sure that students realize that esports intercollegiate, the competition side is very different from esports production, the academic side. It really is a Venn diagram when you look at the student body. And it's no different from traditional sports. Not all soccer players on our college team are going to major in sports management. They're criminal justice majors, they're nurses, they are English majors. Same with our esports production students. Our esports production students are there to produce the games. They're not the ones competing in it. So it's making sure, number one, that they understand the opportunities that are at hand, but I think more importantly, understanding the skill sets that are connected, not only through playing, again, if they're building those durable skills, those communication skills that we talk about a lot, be it through teamwork and proper communication, being good digital citizens, etc. But it's also those harder skills, which really revolve around the production side of things. So again, I know we've mentioned again Adobe before, DaVinci, Unreal, all of those live production and skill sets for editing and whatnot is going to open them up to those job opportunities for tomorrow. So making sure, number one, that they understand those opportunities. Two, that we make them easily attainable. Making sure that there's as few barriers as possible. And part of that is working together with the K through 12 districts, making sure that they have the curriculum in place so the students can essentially vertically align themselves into our program or other programs around the state. We're very fortunate in the state of New Jersey that the New Jersey Council of Community Colleges has created what's called the New Jersey Pathways Program, which is also invested in the growth of esports here in the state of New Jersey. They've put out close to $500,000 to help build this career opportunity as it relates to esports, be it through skills, be it through understanding the opportunities as they relate to the other sectors that may be intersecting. Again, one of the things we haven't talked about too much, and again, I know you mentioned in the beginning, is really where does this go from an AI perspective as well? How does esports layer into that, and making sure that our students that come through these programs are prepared to enter into those job fields, be it through data tagging or any kind of machine learning opportunities that some of these AI firms are really looking for potential applicants as they go forward.
Wonderful. And I'm going to open that, please.
I just want to jump in on this one. I think it's really important for us to start with the end in mind. Really go through the process of backwards mapping the development of any program, particularly esports. I think the curriculum has to be that underlying foundation, because your program can then expand. You can later go back and create additional enhancements, etc. But you also have to make sure that you're being very intentional about creating the space and opportunities for students to engage in the program. So if I'm competitive and I'm already involved in gaming, maybe I come out and I join the program. But what opportunities can be provided to students who want to come out and test the water, right? Because they've heard about it. In Plainfield Public Schools, we offer esports summer camps. We utilize the data from student surveys and from those students who participated in summer camps to help us decide whether or not this was an investment that was worth us making at the school district. We also have the secondary level. In our schedule, we have what's called a flex period. That period is combined with lunch. It's basically a free period for students, right? Students can go out and get academic support, etc. But guess what? They can also go visit the esports arena and connect with the esports coach and learn about this opportunity, right? And that also provides more accessibility. What about the students who have job responsibilities? So they can't show up after school because they legitimately have to go and work because they contribute to their household in some shape, form, or fashion. This now creates an opportunity for those students to also be involved and to be engaged without taking away or putting them in a position where they have to choose between a self-interest, something that they could be pulled into, or this other obligation that they may have.
And I want to say a couple things too. nobody's asking what the soccer curriculum is, but we seem to be always asking about the esports curriculum. You know what I'm saying? And what makes esports so special is that we can provide related curriculum. And so, that new arts, entertainment, and design CTE cluster fits perfectly in the world of esports, right? You think about how we went from radio to TV, and then we did morning announcements in the 90s, and everything kind of fell off since. But meanwhile, that broadcasting and production industry is on a different dimension, and you're now sitting in a state that's going to have the largest Hollywood studio outside of Hollywood with Netflix. You have the best state for entertainment because we have a digital media and tax credit that is going to be for the next 10 years. And people forget that digital media tax credit applies to video game studios. Because it turns out kids who like to play games like to make games. It turns out the number one major that my kids are interested in Garden State Esports is AV and technology. Right, so there's no mistake that we're positioning Camden County and the colleges in New Jersey as a pipeline for broadcasting and production. But Atlantic City is really interested because it's also hospitality and tourism. Right, more money is spent on experiences now than anything else. And esports is an experience, both as a player and as an attendee. Right, and so to be able to come to places like Atlantic City that has that infrastructure that Rashon talked about, right, the amount of dark fiber running under Atlantic City that's unused, this could be the hub, right, of esports and entertainment in a state that is already trying to position themselves there. So what's interesting to me is nobody bothers the wrestlers and asks what their wrestling curriculum is. However, esports is constantly, well, what are you doing for their jobs and careers? Which I think is awesome because we can do that, right? We can tap into a market in a state that is going to be huge business. But the value, right, is not just social and emotional, right? That value is academic, and I think that's what makes esports special on top of, right, again, being so inclusive.
So I'm going to open this one to the entire table. I'm going to keep it broad enough that y'all have plenty to talk about here. So what does intentional equity, intentional accessibility, intentional opportunity look like in an esports ecosystem? This can be from the physical build of an esports space in a school. This can be the design of the program. This can be the way that you train teachers and give students opportunities.
In the facility space and implementation aspect, I would advise administrators to design esports spaces like a CTE grade lab, not necessarily a gaming lounge. So here are some, I think, basic considerations. Multi-use by design, right? When developing a space, just keep in mind that it should flex into a broadcast studio, media lab. You should also have space for small group instruction, STEM lab, and also an event venue. I think that's what really makes the investment defensible. But it also creates an opportunity for multiple stakeholders in the organization to kind of lean into that space, right? You think about one of your highly proficient teachers who focuses on STEM, but being able to bring their class into that space for a mini lesson, et cetera. Infrastructure first, when you think about the power, HVAC, secure networking, device management, acoustics, lighting, sight lines. Those are important, especially if you're building out that broadcasting component, and the student workflow. So competitive play is really just one station, but you need zones for coaching, strategy review, shoutcasting, commentary practice, video editing and graphics, team operations such as scheduling, stats, who's managing the social media, right? Accessibility and supervision. It's always very key. Who's monitoring the children while they're involved in esports? So, and your build out, making sure that you have clear line of sight, ADA friendly layouts and accommodation, and then a sustainability plan. Who maintains this space? Who schedules the use of the space, right? And how is it used during the school day for instruction and not just after school? And if you are thinking, how can we cover the cost? How can we actually fund this initiative? Plainfield Public Schools actually use FEMA reimbursement money to cover the build out of this. So I'm gonna drop a little something for you if you have superintendents in the room, board members, business administrators. Every time the state of New Jersey declares a state of emergency, you have the ability to submit claims to your local county office to get a FEMA reimbursement. So all of the overtime that your team members work during the weekend to plow that snow, to keep your facilities, get them open and ready for folks to come back to school, guess what? It was a state of emergency. Senior reimbursement claims. Plainfield Public Schools went back 2 years and submitted all of the claims for reimbursements from COVID. That gave the school district the funding that was needed to go out and build these spaces for students. It's definitely sustainable if you can get someone else to help meet you halfway or either cover the entire cost of building out your infrastructure for your school community.
I'm going to take this angle because I think I have a lot of these participants in the audience, and I'm not trying to pick a fight, but I'm trying to pick a fight.
Who are you fighting or we all fighting?
If I'm fighting, you're fighting.
All right.
We were very intentional and excited to partner with Njeta. That was one of the relationships I went out and sought almost immediately when I heard what was happening. IT folks, you are the single most important person in this space. And I advocate constantly that you need to be brought into the conversation at the beginning. And I can also tell you this though, and this is literal fact, you are the single greatest derailer of esports programs in the state of New Jersey. And I will give you, and I can give you names, I can give you examples. I'm in 410 schools. I have worked with every third-party IT program you can imagine in our schools. I can give you an IT director in your county that is next to you running the same school as you. There is a right way to do this. It's to do it safely. 410 schools have figured it out, and we've not had a single problem. But there are 3 versions of IT, folks. One that actively fight against this, which means you're actively fighting against kids and we're going to have a problem. Number 2, there's IT folks that do the absolute bare minimum, which will make sure that you never get a program like Plainfield. And then there's IT directors like we see at Plainfield, Mike Wynn and Apsagami, right? Mike Johnson, if you saw him yesterday from West Essex. Not only are they actively involved, they're fighting for esports. Some of them are even the coaches of their program. I cannot stress to you how important IT people are in making this happen. So include them, talk to them, but also make sure they understand that there is no reason to not do this anymore, right? The idea of like, we're gonna get hacked or the kids are gonna break into it. We've got handbooks on this, now fully endorsed by Njeta. Like, I can't talk to IT people who tell me, no way. You're hurting kids. And I don't know how else to say it, right? Mike Johnson, he's my director of competition. He's the head of IT for West Essex. He puts it really simple. IT people, you have to care. We know you're busy, you're fixing and doing, and there's one of you and a million teachers, I understand. But this is super important, and it means a lot to a lot of people. And you have to put your kids and your teachers and your program in a place to be successful, because I'll give you the perfect example, what happens all the time. IT folks go home at 3 o'clock. Esports starts at 3:30. That teacher does not have the power to fix any issues, and then they're forfeiting matches. So not only are you ruining the kids' time in your own district, you're ruining kids from across the state who are sitting there waiting to play. I don't know how else to stress it other than beg you to love esports, because the kids need you to love esports. Please don't fight me.
So, I want to thank you for that, Chris. Shout out to the IT team who's in the building, CITO, Mr. Chris Payne, the entire team. Chris, you brought up a really great point about ensuring that the IT team is at the table from the beginning. I would tell you, as a superintendent, I haven't always gotten that right. But when it came to esports, we got that one right. And Chris and his team was at the table, I think, for some conversations that they probably wouldn't have normally been a part of, right? I can't recall a time that we brought the IT team to the table to talk about curriculum, right? And whether or not this is the appropriate curriculum for us to create or to adopt in our school district. But they also came with that laundry list of questions that's extremely important for us to ask, right? Well, can our network handle this? Are we going to buy the desktops, or are we going to build our own, right? Those are really important questions that had to be asked. And then I think more importantly, is your IT team going to be able to gel with those individuals that you might be bringing in to help you build this thing out, right? What is that interaction going to look like between Chris Chris, and Dan and his team. Because if those folks can't get in the room and work together, you can have the best idea of plan for building out an esports program, but it will be an absolute failure from that point on.
And I'll just dot the I on this. It's no different on the higher education sector. We absolutely have to work hand in hand with our IT teams as well. Again, when you go into open access labs, how much do you restrict, access into the games themselves? How much are you concerned about with the updates that need to occur with these games on a regular basis? So it really is no different. Again, building that relationship, because again, just like on the high school level, where you're starting at 3 o'clock, we start at 7 o'clock. There's really nobody on campus at 7 o'clock to really, to really take care of those situations when the network goes down or something's not loading, et cetera. So making sure that you have a strong relationship, I think, is key.
So no pressure, IT professionals. All right, so we have about 10 minutes left. Time for 1 or 2 questions. So yeah, hand went right up.
In your opinion, what are the top 5 best arenas in the state? Like which districts have
Plainfield, Old Bridge, Piscataway, Brigantine, Camden County College.
I like that answer.
Those are 5 fantastic spaces.
I'll also add the Atlantic City Public School District. They've done an amazing job at building out spaces in each one of their high schools and their high school and middle schools. It doesn't take a lot to build a great space. It's not about the size of the facility of the arena. It's making sure that it has the necessary components from an infrastructure standpoint to be a space where you can compete out of. Again, I look at what some of these other traditional sports have in terms of facilities. Again, when you go to see a high school baseball field, there's nothing really unique about it. It's dirt, it's grass, it's got lines, it's got a fence, some dugouts sometimes the dugouts are on the same level. But just making sure that they have a dedicated space to play out. That to me is the best arena. So while, I do agree with Chris, again, those are some fantastic spaces. It really doesn't take much for a district to actually put together a great arena space. But just make sure that it's a dedicated space. It shouldn't be a shared space. It shouldn't be. Again, you don't have the marching band necessarily going out on your baseball field. I mean, they do sometimes, I guess. But if you can have a space where the esports students can compete out of, they can interact, they can practice, then you're going to create a successful arena. I'm sorry, you wanted to add more? Yeah, sure.
parts of that? Are any of those spaces or any arenas in the district expanding beyond that into like a maker space where we see like 3D printing, that sort of thing, like going beyond the esports arena?
So it's not that they're not able to become maker spaces. What you'll find is those who are building spaces that are doing it right and having them double as instructional spaces are tending to lead into more of things around broadcasting and production and video game design that are done on the devices themselves. So it's not that you couldn't throw, so when I taught in Fairhaven, I absolutely had laptops for my esports space, and I also had my 3D printer, and I even had a Glowforge. So it's not that space during the day can't be multi-purpose, like you heard Rashon say. It tends to be the curriculum and the vision, rightfully so, that most spaces are adopting, tend to be around production, broadcasting, virtual reality, things that are basically using the devices, not necessarily adding secondary devices to them. But listen, every 410 schools, man, I could tell you 410 schools doing 410 different things. But the other thing I want to say real quick is at the end of the day, I'm a nonprofit run by teachers, and my bottom line is always to kids in schools. Plainfield space is what I hope every school is aspiring to. You do not have to start there, right? We have very much keep equity in mind at Garden State Esports, right? You can start for $0 and play with us every season by doing something like bring your own device with a Nintendo Switch. Again, why IT is so important is if that teacher or a kid has a Nintendo Switch and IT is willing to put it on the network, you can play for basically $0. But I can tell you, again, seeing it by year 2, people are reaching out to me, hey, can we get a couple PCs? We want to get into a couple different games. By year 3, they're like, you know what, this would be cool to have a space, and then maybe also teach video game design. And then by year 4, they're having conversations like we are here, right, where they're trying to build a space. But I always want to make sure schools know that, like Atlantic City, like Plainfield, like some of these great spaces I just named, they do not have to be the place you start, right? I have never had a space like that. I literally taught in like an abandoned science class and ran my esports program, there with one Nintendo Switch. So don't think that you can't get into this and start making a difference for kids until you have all of that figured out. You don't. You can kind of build that plane while it's flying, but that's the place we should go.
But you can also use your local colleges as well, too, as those opportunities. As we mentioned, there's 30 schools in the state of New Jersey competing in the Garden State Esports Collegiate Conference. All of us have dedicated spaces for our esports activities. So it's a matter of just reaching out to that local community college, the local 4-year school, and say, hey, do you mind if my team comes there and practices? Because I guarantee, number one, they're not gonna turn away a revenue stream. Number 2, I'm not going to turn away an opportunity to engage with students who potentially might also then come to Camden County College or whatever institution that ends up being. So there are opportunities to work and to compete out of a space locally if the district itself just doesn't have the funding, the resource to make that happen.
I want to add one piece in response to that. If you have the ability to, and this is my personal opinion, I would not try to bring those other elements that aren't directly connected to esports and various pathways into that space. The same way, I wouldn't suggest you go out and put field goal posts on your basketball court. Like, it just is what it is, and I think you have to be very intentional about that. We were fortunate enough in Plainfield Public Schools to have Manny DeSilva, the CEO of the New Jersey School Development Authority, reach out to us. They brought in multiple members of the design team for the School Development Authority to come and tour the district site, because the SDA has now said, as we build new schools in the state of New Jersey, we need to have a blueprint to actually ensure that esports spaces and arenas are a part of our design build when we are constructing new schools in the state of New Jersey. So huge shout out to Chris and his team, because to me, that's the ultimate stamp of approval when the School Development Authority is saying they are going to invest millions of dollars into building out esports spaces as they develop new construction sites or new schools throughout the state of New Jersey. Like, that's huge.
So we are close to end of time, but those of you that still have questions, these gentlemen are incredibly generous, so just come to them right after, or PF5. So I want to end with a closing remark, and this is going to be for everyone down the line. Looking into your crystal ball, 5 years down the line, where do you think the state of scholastic esports in New Jersey is going to be?
I hope that we don't necessarily have to have sessions like this, where it's just something that is just built into a kid's day, and they look forward to going to their esports related class where they're learning all kinds of cool stuff, and then if they want to be part of the team after school, that's fantastic too. It sometimes feel like we're aliens or something, that we're bringing this totally unfathomable idea to schools. Like, what if instead of playing soccer on the soccer field, they played it with cars on the computer? And everybody's like, what? How is that possible? So I think, I'll say this. One of the most disappointing stats that we have is 40% of our kids say that my school meaningfully includes esports as part of their, vision for the school. I hope that hits all our other stats, where we have 89, 90, 99% of kids saying, I love my coach, he's a trusted adult I can go to. I've made at least one new friend since I joined the esports team, right? I think that I'm hoping that it is just something else that we do here, and it's just part of life in New Jersey.
Love it.
It's the alignment. It's the alignment from K through 12 sport activities to higher education sport activities, making sure that what happens on the traditional sports is done for esports. And so ultimately, it's getting rid of the label of traditional and getting rid of the E and just calling them all sports. I mean, because that's really what this is. And again, by continuing to support the industry, to push to make sure that people consider it the same, that's where I want to see it in 5 years, really do.
So I see a couple of big moves. One, I see more formalized pathways. I think starting at middle school, I think it was more appropriate. More credit-bearing coursework that's tied to the esports ecosystem roles, media production, entrepreneurship. More regionalized and statewide invitational opportunities, dual enrollment and articulated credits. And then stronger wellness and digital citizenship guardrails for our students, supported by policies that we can see inside of the New Jersey School Boards Association policy manuals. I think that is really important. And the last piece, which I think is more of the innovation, I am hoping desperately that there is a big player out in the space who will also want to come and make an investment into esports to help us make the student experience even better, but to allow some students to be able to engage in some sports that their physical abilities prohibit them from participating in. And I think the way we get there is by leveraging virtual reality and augmented reality, which I think can be the next level of esports. So if you think about a student's ability, right, maybe I'm autistic, maybe I have some type of disability that doesn't allow me to engage in a contact sport. What if we were able to provide a virtual football team that can engage and compete with each other, and that could actually open up the doorway for students who couldn't normally get out on the football field, may not be able to run up and down the soccer field, but to engage at that competitive level in some of the more traditional contact sports that they haven't been able to engage in. I know that it might not come to fruition just by us three sitting here at the table, but again, there are some players in the space that I think should be speaking to us and talking to us about ways that we could further enhance this. And I think it will come to fruition over the course of the next 5 years.
So I want to say thank you to our panelists and a big round of applause for Rashon, Hasan, David Bruno, and then of course Chris Aviles.